Hi everybody, it's the CC JT Amatawa, where production values go to die. That over there is CC.
And that's JT.
And we're not awake, so we're going to drink some coffee. We'll let you, get settled because we're in for another exciting half hour of
Blathering?
Blathering. So, l'chaim, y'all.
Lots of blathering. Well, we can actually talk about our last podcast because we did that one before the Super Bowl happened.
Right. So last Sunday, first of all, congratulations to Taylor Swift on winning the Super Bowl in her rookie year. Congratulations. Well done. We thought you would be an energetic signing for a rookie, but we didn't think that the impact that you had on the team would be so awesome.
Right.
So, go Taylor. And of course, congratulations to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yes.
We were rooting for the Niners, but we have no regrets because it was a
close game.
It was a very even game. So and it's and as we said before, somebody was going to rise, somebody was going to fail, and it was going to sting for some, and it was going to be revelry for others.
Right.
And I think that, of course, we should pause here for a moment to send our respects and love to the folks in Kansas City.
Yes.
That that were victims, and not just those that were directly affected, but all of the Kansas City. And so we send our love, and we hope that those affected find strength and and the means to find strength.
Yes, we have seen this all too many times now that something that is supposedly a very pleasant and exciting experience for a lot of people is destroyed by the actions of other people. So our thoughts do go out to everyone, and congratulations to the Chiefs, and also our condolences to Kansas City.
Yeah, and okay, so here we are. Here we go. We got to get the microphone a little bit closer to us because we're low powered today.
Us.
That's normal, actually.
Put it in front of me. Us. We.
Yeah, you see, worst Irish person in the world. She smells. If you open Guinness in the same room with her,
there's nothing wrong with that.
And quiet. They call it the quiet man, but that was actually the American, not the Irish. Okay, I'm picking on you.
I might have a low voice, but I am not a quiet person. People say they love my stories, so I do have the gift of the gab at least.
Okay.
Well, I've only kissed the Blarney Stone twice.
Yeah, this is true. She did kiss
the
Blarney Stone twice, and probably each time wondering, what am I doing here?
Not until afterward when I looked up. Ooh, that's way up there.
That's way up there. Just very briefly, if you, Blarney Castle, of course, is Blarney, famous for having the Blarney Stone, being very ancient and open-roofed castle. And that's a whole different story, which we're not going to go in there.
That's a big story, yes.
But I never did this because I was born in Texas, and believe me, I don't need no help to bullshit. But the legend has it, if you kiss the Blarney Stone, your powers of...
Your gift of the gab.
You're
blessed with the gift of the gab.
But when it comes to Ireland, nothing is easy. You could put the rock right there on the ground and just form a line, bend down, kiss it.
That's not as much fun.
No. We need to put it on the highest building in the area. Then we need to, hang it over this open. Not window, but...
No, there's just an opening because you have the crenellations at the top of the castle. Right. So instead of the area that goes up, the stone is actually down, and there is an opening, and you lean back. They have you laying down. You lean back, and they hold you, and they actually slide you down a little bit, even further.
Yeah.
And then you have to put your head way back and kiss the stone.
All while doing this, and you should notice she said that it was open. It is yards. It is stories. It's like 5 or 6 stories above the ground. Yeah. I mean, it is way freaking down there. And of course, the Irish, they believe in safety nets.
No. Well, it's also on a hill.
Yeah, it's on a hill. Yeah.
So the castle's on a hill, not on that side. That side. I mean, the whole thing is up on a hill because that's basically the idea of a castle, is that you're protecting a high point. And I will say that the gardens, the view from the top of the castle is absolutely gorgeous. But when you go down, if you do kiss the stone, you go down and you look up, there's a little bit of a panic attack there because, oh my God, that's really high.
Yeah, it's like, what are you doing? So Google Blarney Castle, and then Google the side that has the Blarney Stone, and you'll be going.
So I did it not once, but twice.
Yeah, well, once we can kind of figure out, because that's a touristy thing to do, but twice, oh my God.
Well, we went with somebody else that time,
Yeah.
and
Did she
neither
do it too?
one. No,
Yeah.
I was the only one that did it.
Yeah, that would be my awesome aunt, and of course she's smart.
Yes, they're smart. I'm not the same bloodline. I'm actually, directly descended from someone born in Ireland who I don't think ever went to Blarney Castle, as far as I know, but she didn't need it.
Yeah, you wind her up, and okay. Anyway,
Yes.
let us not talk about my mother-in-law. Let us talk about why we're actually here. So, we're going to be talking about. Well, we could be crass, and we could say profitability. We could say that this is a thing about profitability.
Maybe.
Because when a writer finds their stride, they find themselves in a particular genre. They find themselves, I don't want to say locked, but they find themselves in their lane.
In a niche.
In a niche, in their lane. And they and some are very successful at it.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the obvious example is Uncle Steve.
Right.
But one more, I'm thinking like John Grisham.
Right.
But John Grisham, who wrote great legal thrillers. But when he sort of waves out of those legal thrillers, I don't know if he has the same level of success because people categorize John Grisham as legal thrillers, and
right.
we could name a dozen, but we're going to keep it simple. We're going to go keep it simple. Well, your favorite romance writer is
Georgette Heyer, but probably for the purposes of this discussion, maybe we would say Barbara Cartland, she's very specifically identified with a particular type of romance.
So you pick up John Grisham, you pick up Barbara Cartland.
Yes.
You're in for a comfortable read if that is your preference, because you know what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. But that's not the name of this podcast. It's Dichotomy versus Genre. And
Dichotomy.
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 Dichotomy. I knew what I was trying to say. Dichotomy. And so why dichotomy? So because I suffer from that a little bit. I think
we both do.
I can't seem to pick. Well, your brain thinks in romance novels.
Sometimes, but I have written science fiction, and I have written some horror.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a very memorable horror story that I wrote for a college class that I wish I knew where it was because it was disturbing.
Yeah,
and most people who read it would not associate it with me.
Yeah. Well, I wrote a horror story. Remember that cat story?
Oh my gosh, we do have that. We do have copies of that. We should post that.
Okay.
But yes, that was cute.
Okay.
You would not associate JT with cute, but that was a cute story.
I thought it was a horror story. Okay.
We're talking about Nightmare on Kitty Street?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it was not a horror story.
Okay, moving on.
But you are identified, or certain authors are identified with certain genres.
Yeah.
George R.R. Martin, is really known now for Game of Thrones.
Yeah. But the challenge I was trying to lead up to is there are people who are there are writers who are pigeonholed, and then there are writers who are all over the place. Oh, hello, hi, and you kind of have to wonder if that's good or bad, because in my brain, when I think of famous writers, they're writers that are in their lane. Mm-hmm. And then there are writers that are not. And what we did is we brought a couple of examples here of I almost said it again, dichotomy. The dichotomy of what rests before you, before the microphone and before the camera. So I'm going to quickly read from this book. And she's going to quickly read from this book. And we're going to show you the dichotomy. And the reason that we're doing that is illustrate the yin and the yangs of the writing team that is CC and JT. So I should have.
And another thing that we will mention while you're looking for what you're looking for is that authors who do decide to maybe step out of their lane will sometimes write under a different pseudonym, which is what JT did on that book.
Yeah, you see down there
Says Connor Mays.
Yep. But we're gonna start actually pulling this together and making our points after we read. We really do want to read something here. So
yep.
From chapter 1, from the opening chapter of Love and Death in I-80 West by J.G. Hume, writing as Connor Mays. And let's see. So I always thought that Twitchy. This is first person, so I always thought Twitchy had a gravelly voice, but I'm not going to do that. When you break a neck, get them face down with your knee between their shoulders. Put one hand in the hair and the other on their chin, and twist the chin hard towards you. The backbone at the base of their head will make a chicken bone noise, and if you've done it right, you'll feel their chest go down under your knee and not come back up. That's just paragraph 1. So
the opening paragraph of Love and Death on I-80 West. So that tells you what you're in for if you pick up that book. And as you saw on the cover, it is rather lurid.
Yeah,
it is definitely not safe for work.
Yeah.
But so segueing from that, this is the book that we wrote together, the romance from Tundra to Tiara. And this is from chapter 9. This is from Lexi's perspective. The most memorable winter Lexi had experienced as a child was a European blizzard that had, for all intents and purposes, frozen the continent in place. She'd been so young that going outside and playing in the snow were practically her earliest memories. During her time at university in Upper New York, snow and frigid air blasted from the frozen Great Lakes, causing much complaining from the undergrads.
Yeah.
So we go from something very violent to something where it's more of a colored memory, a colored childhood memory, which not a traumatic childhood memory, but just, a little bit more neutral.
Yep. So you can see that we've got some variants here. So the question is that, I don't want to say is it right, but is it an ideal situation for two struggling writers who want to, sell books and want to, create things? So let's take it down the list here. So we have the genre on this side, and then we have people that are all over the place, like here. And so people who stick to genre, they get followers of that particular genre.
Right.
So, we have people who are, like legal stuff that follow John Grisham, horror stuff that like follow Uncle Steve, romantic stuff, soft romantic stuff, like Aunt Barbara, just that stuff. So people know what they expect. They anticipate what's going to be happening. We're talking about the buying public, here. The readers, they can anticipate what's going to be coming out because they know it may be a sequel or it may be something in the same lines.
Right.
So, so that anticipation builds up, and it's easy for the writer to build anticipation for the next the next book that's coming out. And if you're like, Uncle Steve or the other ones, they're going to be generating a book like once a year.
Right.
So folks know that, as regular as clockwork, these things are going to be coming out. And people are, they get their itches scratched because they know that when they get that next book, it's going to be scratching some sort of itch that has been developed by the previous books from the same writer in the same genre. And, and if you are writing for a profits point of view, from a profitability point of view, then this is all sort of win-win in that way.
Right.
Because you're continuously buying these same books.
You have a built-in audience already.
Yeah, built-in audience. People that know what's coming, especially if it's a long series such as Mr. Martin.
Right.
And that would be an ideal example of keeping your readers on tetherhooks for decades.
Still hasn't finished that
Still
series.
hasn't finished.
And people will go out and buy it when it comes out, no matter how long it takes.
Yeah, and so that is a classic example of why staying in your lane when it comes to writing versus going all over the place. So there is a lot of advantages for picking a genre, and sticking with it and staying in your lane. And kudos to those that can do that. Now for folks that that don't, folks that read all over the place, and I'll just, forgive me for using myself as an example, as I used a serial killer in one series, I used a cop in another series, and I used a child protective services worker in another series, and this next series that I'm working on that's going to be coming out hopefully this year is a space epic. So why would I do something like that instead of doing this? Obviously, I think probably I could, if I pick something more like government oriented as a genre, because
Right.
I picked, because I do have a couple of series that way. I pick, law and child protective services. Why don't I sort of stick in that genre versus going, all over the place? It's because it's boring. It's boring.
We have a lot of different interests, and one of my, I guess you'd call it a tagline on one of my former social media accounts. I don't know that I use it anymore. And I've seen other people use it too. I said I was a Jane of all trades and mistress of none. So I have a lot of interests in a variety of different areas that I could write in. But as I think the point we're trying to make here is, will that be profitable? If I go off on a tangent, write maybe one series in just a Barbara Cartland style, very sweet romance where the last page of the book may be a kiss. And then I go completely opposite of that and write a dark romantasy, which romantasy is apparently a new genre, a new subgenre of romance fantasy. And, would that harm me? Should I change pseudonyms if I do that? As writers, I don't know if that's something that we really need to think about, or if we just want to be true to ourselves and our current interests at the time we're writing a book.
And I think that's really, you nailed it right there. I think you nailed it right there, because we as writers, we like to think of ourselves as never-ending fonts of creativity and ideas and things like that. But, for some writers, and I'm including myself in this, it's easy to get bored with what you're writing. And so if I'm not interested in what I'm writing, if I'm not fascinated by what I'm writing, then I'm not going to write it. And that is key, because that's where my ideas come from. And I don't know where your ideas come from, but I know where my ideas come from is it's basically what if I did something like this?
Yes.
What if I did something like this? What if I look at a movie, watch a movie, but what if I change the focus of a character and make this character the driving force, and then create a whole world around that character? And that's what I did. That's what I've done. Or what if I try this, this idea where people are all trapped in this box for thousands of years? What happens to them, and thus creates the space epic? But it has to fascinate me. And I'm not saying anything about folks who stay in the lane, stay in their genre, because they've done so, and many have done so, and many are very successful. Because and John Grisham again is a classic example of that, because you wouldn't think that there are variations on the theme when it comes to legal stuff, but there actually are, because the legal field is incredibly complex. And it's easy to, grab it by the heel and dip it in the water, so to speak, and come out with a new look at it, a new idea.
Well, and this doesn't just pertain to authors. You made me think of directors also, because somebody like Steven Spielberg, for example, was pretty well known for the summer blockbuster, along with George Lucas. And then they became famous for doing that. And then they decided they wanted to kind of try new things. And people were drawn to them because of their name.
Right.
So if you knew it was a Steven Spielberg movie, then you would go see it no matter what the movie was, because you knew Steven Spielberg was a good director.
Yeah, and he ran into problems with that, because some of his movies that people were used to, hi Steve, we're used to Steve doing this kind of movies, and then when he expanded his thing, those movies didn't do as well,
right? Because
they were expecting Jaws, Jaws and Close Encounters and things like that, and that didn't happen. But you know what? After a while, he got so much money and so much power, he could pretty much say do whatever he want. Which brings me back to a story which I've told before on this podcast, but which is pertinent. Creative writing class in a hot summer at the University of Nevada, in my grandfather's building, which, and no air conditioning at that time in that building. And of course, where did they put us? They put us at the south end of the building, but that's not important. But we're in this old classroom, old desks that probably were in the same room that my grandfather taught there. And somebody said, well, I see why we have to do these grammar things, why we have to do these things, But why do we have to do them? Stephen King doesn't have to do them. And he says, you're not Stephen King. And you can do them when you are Stephen King.
Right.
And so therein lies the thing is, if you want to, we want to go outside that genre that your readers are used to, then that comes with risk.
Yes.
But what is the flip side of that is, what is the price? Are you true to yourself, or are you true to your readers? It's a nifty balance there. And the fact that I have written multiple books and multiple series means that I have acknowledged the fact that readers deserve closure.
Right.
But I've gone all over the place, so
Well, even Stephen King, though, didn't he? Now I'm trying to remember his pseudonym. Richard Bachman. Was it the Bachman books? Yeah. So even Stephen King decided to try something different. Yeah. Used a different pseudonym, and then later on, people started attributing those books to Stephen King because they're like, well, yes, these were written under a different pseudonym, but they were still written by Stephen King, basically. Yeah. And so you've got the Bachman books.
Yeah, and then we're talking about Uncle Steve just for a second. He very rarely does sequels. He very rarely does sequels. He did one for The Shining, which I started and then got extremely bored. But Hollywood made a movie out of it. So
that was Dr. Sleep?
Yeah, Dr. Sleep. Yeah. So, but John Grisham very rarely does one. He did.
Right.
Yeah, but maybe that's going outside the idea between genre and dichotomy. So
right.
It's a struggle. It's difficult. It's difficult. But I can only speak for myself in this way, that if I don't go outside, if I don't write a book that I find interesting, I'm not going to write it. And if that means, if it happens to be in the same genre, then awesome. But if it's something that's outside that genre and it's interesting to me, I'm going to write it.
So what we're saying is, as authors, is this something that you really worry about? And I have seen people post about this online, that they are worried about writing something in a different genre, or they're worried about using a different pseudonym. And in one case in particular, I know people who write adult fiction plus young adult fiction or middle grade fiction or something like that. And if you want to distinguish yourself between age groups, it might be a similar genre, but for a different age group, sometimes I think that may be a good time to use a different pseudonym, because that way they know specifically that it is meant for a certain group. But there may be authors who use the same pseudonym for everything, no matter what age group it is. And, that's perfectly fine. That's up to the author. But, in that case, I think that might be a better point in time to really worry about whether or not you're being recognized for a certain thing, because you want people to be comfortable having their kids read a certain type of book. And if it's under the same pseudonym for both adult and young adult fiction, that could be a little tricky.
Yeah. It's a complex subject.
Very.
It is a complex subject, and I know that it's something that we writers, around the world struggle with every day whenever we sit down to do our typing. And so if you have some thoughts, if you have any ideas on this, we'd love to hear back from you. And did we miss any kind of significant points? Did we miss the challenges with it? Did we miss the impact of it? Because there's going to be an impact with it, unless you become well established. It's an interesting debate about staying in your lane versus.
Well, and the other point of this was the dichotomy, and basically From Tundra to Tiara is a very sweet, cozy romance, whereas the Tucci Chronicles, as JT is calling them, is much darker. There are elements of a romance, but it's more of a dark romance, I would think. And so you have someone who can write very sweet. Knowing him personally, I have not seen the dark side. So you kind of wonder, like in the case of Stephen King, for example, he writes some very disturbing stories. Where does that come from? And, is that a different personality? Should that be a different pseudonym? Because that's the darker side of your personality. That kind of thing really can come into play with what you're talking about when you decide to publish under different names, different genres, things like that. So there are a lot of factors that come into play when you're determining how best to produce your writing.
It's a challenge. And And then it all goes back. I think it really just goes back. If we're going to build, go from the foundation up, it's really going to build is why do you write in the first place? Why do you write in the first place? And if you write to, get the story out of your brain that is scratching on the inside of the cardboard box, like a cat scratching, trying to get out of a cardboard box, then maybe genre doesn't matter as much to you.
Right.
But if you're looking towards probably what I want to say, if there is such a thing in the world of independent publishing, if you want to have some sort of regular profitability, if you were writing for your audience versus writing for yourself, then maybe genre writing is something that you're interested in. But for myself, I'm just going to pledge to folks that are reading this, or listening to this or watching this, is I'm going to write stories that hopefully that you find interesting, because I find interesting. And if they are in space, or if they are in Nevada, which sometimes is almost close to the same place, then that's the way it's just going to be.
And that is a very pertinent point in this whole discussion, because most people, there are those people who will go into writing saying, I'm going to become the next Stephen King. I'm going to be rich and famous, and people will know me forever, and good for you.
Good.
If you're writing to a very specific formula and that's what you want to do, and that that's going to make you money, awesome. But a lot of us, and especially those of us who are self-publishing, independent publishing, it may be more of that we are trying to do something, like you said, to scratch that itch, because there is something that just makes us want to write, want to get the story out. We talked a little bit about my Irish background. Irish are very big storytellers, and I think that's part of the reason why I like to tell stories. It's part of my cultural tradition. So it's, whatever drives you to write, I think that helps you determine, do you want to stay in your own lane, in your own genre, maybe using the same pseudonym all the time or your real name, or do you want to bounce around and just do whatever makes you happy?
Yep. So it's, it is what it is. So but I think really you got to live with yourself too. You got to live with yourself. So we're interested in hearing from folks. What's your thoughts? What's your ideas? Did we get this right? Did we miss it? Sometimes we miss it. But if we got close to this, we'd sure like to hear what your opinions are on it. So as always, and here comes the commercial, you can check us out, our blogs, our podcasts, basically our existence, because really we're very boring people, out on our website at www.carsonhume.com. And you can reach out to us, and of course we are out on the Facebook, and we're out on the Twitter. We're not going to call it the other name, and we're out on all the other social media. Yeah, we're all sorts of social media. So if we'd be interested, like I said, in what you have to say, what you think about this entire mess, because it is a challenging. It's a challenging arena to consider. And I'm repeating myself. Do you have anything else you want to throw in?
Well, I just wanted to say that not only let us know if we're right or wrong, I'd be interested in any authors that you follow, no matter what genre they write in. Because we mentioned people like George R.R. Martin and Stephen King, who are known for a very specific genre. But if you can think of a famous author who does multiple genres and is popular in multiple genres, I'd be interested in hearing, because I can't think of any off the top of my head.
And that's all part of the pigeonholing thing.
Yep.
Okay. So that's it for this week, folks. So we'll be back next week with a podcast full of exciting stuff as soon as we can figure out what that is.
Well, next week, not quite March yet, and we've already started the discussion about St. Patrick's Day, I guess, but we'll probably come up with some other interesting idea during the week to discuss.
Okay, sitting over there, Cece.
And over there's JT.
Y'all take care of yourself, and we appreciate anybody and everybody that follows along with us and watches and listens to us. So until then, y'all take care of yourself. Love you lots. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.